Good morning, and thank you for joining us at SFG's Top Performance. With us today, we have Derrick, Jason, and Charles, our regulars. We're going to be talking about spring seeding ground preparation, Pell lime in front of spring seeding, ERT planting preparations, timing of spring applications on your pre's for both corn and beans, and Charles is going to go over equipment and preparation he has in the fields. Derrick, would you like to start us off today?
You bet. So this week with the warmer weather, people have been calling in and asking about small seed, early seedings a lot. And one of the probably most popular questions we get is, can we just spread some small seed out there with fertilizer, and how successful will that stand be? So today I just wanted to talk about kind of what are some of the pros and cons of that, and talk about what it takes to have a good seed bed, to have a good early frost seed or early spring seeding. Our most popular frost seed is red clover, and we do have pretty darn good luck by interseeding that with other crops out there. Or if we have a grass pasture, we have real good luck with putting red clover out there, letting the freeze thaw cycles bring that clover into the ground. It's a hardy seed. It'll pop up during those frost seedings. That one's probably red clover is probably the most popular. We kind of it doesn't work as well with alfalfa that we would like. We get a lot of questions, can we start an alfalfa seeding or put some alfalfa out in a grass pasture, but it just doesn't seem to work quite as well. And that's because the seed to soil contact just isn't there that's needed for alfalfa. It's really important to get that actual seed touching the ground, and when we're putting that on a thick mat of grass, we don't get that good seed to soil contact, and that's where we get a lot of unsuccessful stands, and then people get upset because the alfalfa's not coming up. But some things we can do to get around this are making sure that grass is mowed down really, really close, or grazed really close down throughout the fall and early spring, just to see. We want to see some bare dirt if that's what we're trying to accomplish. Or if we have to go into a thick matted stand, we want to use something like a no-till drill to actually get that mat cut and get that seed into the ground. With new spring seedings, the best way is if it's applicable. I don't want to be going out there on side hills, but the best way is to you do a tillage pass and get that bare, or get that dirt bare. So we're actually planting into black soil, and you want that ground hard and firm, so those small seeds just get into the ground and have a lot better chance of being more successful with that.
I have a question for you on that. When you're going into pastures and doing seeding, is it going to be a problem when you have a lot of cattle? You had a lot of cattle on it, so you have a lot of manure in piles scattered throughout the field. You need to knock those down first, or just seed across top of them and let them be?
Generally, probably most guys just seed across the top of them and let them go. A lot of times with these pastures, with new seedings, that's where we're going to see a lot of the new growth come from, because those are the most nutrient dense areas, and it's really hard to get that spread. That's a problem with having cattle grazing on a pasture. You can't get them to leave their manure very evenly around the field. But there's probably no real great way to get that spread out and knock it down. But if so, generally people don't. But
okay, thank you.
And after you've spent all your time getting your ground prepared and ready, and having a nice pretty seed bed to plant your alfalfa in and whatnot, it's when you're putting this high dollar seed out, it's very important to make sure your pH is in check, to make sure that the seed's gonna survive and have early vigor. And if it doesn't, you're wasting a lot of money. And I think getting the lime and pH in check is the most important thing to a proper good stand and longevity in your stand. And a good way to do that is by using a product called Pell lime. Pell lime it's only neutralizing the root zone. It's not like lime is neutralizing your whole soil profile. The Pell lime is only good for your root zone. So you're only putting a couple 100 pounds out there to get your root zone pH where it needs to be to get that stand established and get a good early vigor on that seed. So that's a good insurance policy to make sure you're going to have a good stand. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people miss, and a lot of seed failures are because our pH isn't quite there. We might have limed it, but actual ag lime takes about a year to become active in the soil. And Pel lime is good, within a month or so, your Pel lime's where it needs to be to have your pH in check. So I think that's a very good product to make sure we're not wasting a couple $100 an acre by the time we do our tillage and buy the seed and fertilize it. Let's not forget that little bit of lime to make sure that our seed is a good, cheap insurance policy. So with that, Derrick, I know we'll shift gears a little bit to VRT seeding. What are you doing to prepare for that, to make sure that everything works right and get ready for that?
Yeah, so the last week or so been geared up to, I guess, the next step of the VRT seed plans. We've talked about, what we do to make the VRT seed plans, putting more corn seeds in the better acres, putting less in the worse acres. And so the next step is just tweaking them to make sure they match hybrids. You want to take a look in consideration. If it's a flex hybrid, you want to reduce that population a little bit, or if it has a real fixed year, you can push that. So I really like to take it field by field and look at every single hybrid and make sure do as much planting as we can this time of year, because we only get one chance at planting. And then if you have a hybrid switched, or you have a flex hybrid that you have a really high population on, you're already setting yourself up for less yield potential. So we want to get the most yield potential, and really during this planning month of March, we sure can find a lot of that. The next steps are getting them set up in the tractors, and our VRTs can work with any type of tractor, any type of VRT monitor and planter. We have every shapefile combination. We work with Case, work with John Deere, work with white planters, air seeders, anything that can variable rate that we got a computer in. We'll either know how to do it, or we'll learn how to get those VRTs in there. But that's what's going on in the next couple of weeks. We're just going to get field prep done, putting the last finishing touches on those seed plans, and making sure we're ready to go when the planters roll. Because if we get another week of weather like we did, that might come sooner than we think.
Yes, it will. And whether thinking about planning, we've talked a lot about pre-applications in our podcast, but we haven't talked a lot about when to apply them and when's the right time to get them down, and when's too early and when's too late. And I guess, I want to talk a little bit about that. One thing we need to make sure it's warm enough that we're killing all those winter annuals out there. So we want it to be, 50 degrees or above to make sure we're killing everything. And we don't want to do it too early, so we have, our weeds come back too soon. So I guess as a rule of thumb, I've always said never start your bean pre's before the 1st of April. And this year, as warm as it's been, maybe that's not right. Maybe we want to be a little earlier, and maybe guys are going to plant beans earlier. But as a rule of thumb, the 1st of April or after is, a good time to start your bean pre's. I feel I've always said 30 to 45 days, and a lot of the manufacturers will, depending on the products, will say 30 to 45 days is about how long a pre is expected to last. So we don't want to be too far in front of them that we get weeds emerging and we're not planting into a good clean seed bed and defeating our purpose. So, that first few weeks of April is, I feel, the ideal time to get your pre-soybean product down if weather conditions permit. Because if you're going out there and you're making tracks and the sprayers are tearing up things, you're defeating your purpose of a no-till, because that's, you want to make sure you're not compacting things, and you want a pretty seed bed when you plant your beans, just like this seed. So, we don't want to tear things up, and we want it to be dry, and we want the right conditions when we're doing these pre's as well. Corn pre's, I personally like to wait till after the corn's planted and give it that, that little bit of extra time to that 10 days of emergence. Hopefully, usually the first corn's a little bit slow. We can do it ahead of time. Corn planters are often move a little bit more dirt than the bean planters, and sometimes leave that trash whippers and leave a furrow that's moving a lot of chemicals. So I like to wait. That's why I like to wait till after the chemicals, to make sure we're getting an even coverage across, a cornfield, and so we don't have strips where the trash whippers have moved a lot of dirt and stuff to move our chemicals around as well. So that's my. So that hopefully we're able to plant in the middle of April, so we can start our pre's as soon as we're done with our bean pre's. We can start corn pre's. Charles, what we're talking about these pre's, what about our equipment? How are we set up for that and anhydrous, and where are we sitting for our spring needs?
It's so close to getting dry enough. We are in the process of getting it. A few anhydrous tanks have been out to the country. There's not much activity yet. We've been doing a little bit of super grow on some grass pasture. Some of that pasture still isn't fit yet. The north side hills are still pretty frosty. We don't need to get anybody get in trouble. We've been doing some dry seeding, like you're talking, on some pastures. Chemical wise, we're getting chemicals in, getting the sheds full, getting ready for spring. But as any post sprayers, we've got one or two that's out of the shed, and that's about it. We're still waiting on it to quit freezing so we can get some water through and test some nozzles and all those activities. But I'd like to say we're ready to go. You always have a slow start, but it'll be here before we know it. And we're ready to go. Just make it stay warm.
Yes.
Yeah, and as we get ready for spring here, we have our seeding to do. We have our pre's to put on, and Charles is getting all the equipment ready for us. And Derrick talked a little bit about the precision application of his seed and the preparation for that. And a lot of what we do at Smith Fertilizer and Grain for our customers is working with precision agriculture. Whether you call it precision agricultural, satellite farming, or site-specific crop management, it's farm management concept, and it's based on observing, measuring, and responding to inter and intra-field variability in crops. The goal of Smith Fertilizer and Grain, precision agriculture research that we've been doing, is to define a decision support system for the whole farm management with the goal of optimizing the returns on inputs while preserving resources. And you say, well, what can precision agriculture do for me? Well, we say the same thing. What can precision agriculture do for you? And that's what we're trying to help with. And precision agriculture will help you reassess your farming budget, moving away from the ineffective tools and towards precise processes that are proven by Smith Fertilizer and Grain to increase your yield. If you find that expenses are increasing, you should also notice that profits increase too. Precision agriculture pays off when you invest in the right techniques. I want to thank you for joining us today, for being part of our SFG Top Performance. We want to thank you for the business that you've given us in the past, and we want to thank you for the future business you're going to be giving us as well. And we hope to see you again next time. Thank you.